Yes. Let's see if I have to zoom in a little bit. All right. Take my seat and get back to this. I'll probably do one more live today where I'm going to be finishing. Y'all know I got Project Reach the World where I do artwork. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to be finishing this picture. That's Miss Princess, my granddaughter. I do artwork to raise money for my husband's defense, and also to so I'm going to be working on these two later tonight. So that's going to be my last live of today. But I do those things to tell the story, to get my story known, because most people know me from my artwork. And then I also do it to raise money. Okay, so where we left off, we were in trial. So let's start with my intro. What it is, you guys, it is your girl Cadillac. Yes, I'm Cadillac Dixon. I'm the Drama Life Prison Wife. I'm the legally blind artist that is rapping and painting for justice. Open, girl, to see justice before it all fades to black. Yes, it's your girl Cadillac. Okay, so I already recorded. I have up already the testimony. I did this whole series this week. The grave mistakes you make when you decide to take a conviction at face and then value. Like all of it around itself for face value. I had to put value on the end, girl. But I was basically taking an arrest, a wrongful conviction, like taking you through the steps of how this happens. So I focused in a lot last week about how wrongful convictions are first started by wrongful arrest. So right after that, I felt it was no better time than to just jump straight into the transcript and read the testimonies of the arresting officer and two other officers. The arresting officer, the officer that was riding along with the arresting officer, and then another officer that came to the scene. They all, though they all were at the scene, at the same scene, at the same time, they had different, trying to get it zoomed in correct. They still, though they were at the same place at the same time, they still, all three had different accounts of what happened that night in question. What really happened is that the officer one, the one who wrote the report, he wrote it and basically amended it, let the people that alleged to be robbed, let them amend it, made sure that the amount of monies did line up with what they had and what Marchello had on him and what they said was taken. It didn't match up initially, but the officer made sure that it matched up later once it went through processing and everything. A lot of what he did was taint the case from the beginning. So because the case was already tampered and tainted with from the beginning, once you get to it's going to then go through the process of going from the state attorney, your public defender. They taint it there as well. And then it goes to the trial where the judge, the jury, everyone else can finish off this tainting to where the person does not receive a fair trial. Marchello did not receive a fair trial in front of a jury of his peers, basically, like his constitutional rights said that he deserved. So I already have that. That made me just, since it's so aligned with it, I jumped straight into the officers. But then I was like, maybe I should just go back. And while I have a little time on my hands, let's read through this whole transcript. That way we can basically formulate our own opinions. And that's what we're doing. So the first video that I released that will be in that Free Marchello playlist is the officers' sworn statements and testimonies on the stand, and now I just recorded the jury selection process. It was a portion of that. It's also the introduction, like jury instructions on how they are to listen to this case and how they are to conduct themselves through this case. And then it also is the opening arguments of the state lawyer and the defense lawyer, which is Marchello's public defender. Which in fact, he said that he was not a public defender. To give you just a little tad background as I'm trying to open this document, because where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay, so to give you a little background, basically the gist of the story, Marchello was walking home from a 7-Eleven on the corner. It was on a street called Westmoreland. He lived on a street back then. Well, he didn't really, like I said, Marchello lived place to place, pillar to post. He didn't really belong nowhere. He moved from South Carolina, where he was raised by his mother and with his brother. He was sent down here to Orlando, Florida. He said nobody put him in school, nothing. So at 17 years old, he basically dropped out of high school. He lived person to person, so he was designated to live with his grandmother, but he would spend nights at his uncle's house, or he would spend nights at a cousin's house. Like, he basically just kept moving. He had to keep moving because it wasn't nowhere that he could stay too long. So for those few days, he was living with a female cousin on, I believe it said Jefferson Street. I can't remember. It was just in the transcript, but he was living there like for a few days or whatever. So when they say living, like, Marchello moved all around. Okay, so he walks up to the 7-Eleven on the corner of Westmoreland from the cousin's house, which is just a few blocks up. He goes, purchases him a soda, and he goes to head back home on foot. On his way from heading back home on foot, he has a male cousin drive past and say, hey. He said that basically he didn't recognize him till he turned around and came back toward him and was like, oh, Marchello, you want to ride? And Marchello said, sure, I'll walk. He said, sure, I'll get a ride. And as soon as Marchello got in the car where his cousin pulled over to pick him up, was so close to the stop sign that he actually rolled the stop sign as he was trying to pick him up and pull off. Now, there were discrepancies that you will see if you go watch the testimonies from the officers. All of those do not align, and I did pinpoint them in the description box, so you can go and push that timestamp and you'll go straight to that spot that I'm talking about, that issue not aligning. I love doing this. I love it. Like, this would be my passion. Like, if I was somebody's lawyer, I would fight tooth and nail as though it were me on trial, as though it was my husband on trial, as though it was my child on trial. That's how I would fight for people. I wouldn't just play this as though it's a game, So he gets in the car and his cousin is driving. He has 2 passengers in the car. Within seconds of really getting in the car, the police seen and observed that car rolling that stop sign, got ready to put on their sirens, had their lights on, was finna pull the car over. Instead of the car pulling over, Marchello's cousin floors it and speeds off and basically goes up. He goes around, he comes back, goes around a little street here and comes down a dead end. It was a dead end cul-de-sac. So he gets right there in that dead end, doors fly open, and the cousin, boom, he's gone. They said the cousin was never arrested, never brought up on charges, and through this whole trial, they sit and act as though the cousin was never caught. Because if you really listen to this case, None of it makes sense until you put in that key component, that key puzzle piece, that cousin. Without that cousin, the whole rest of the case is something missing. It's something missing there. It can't make sense on its own, and it doesn't make sense on its own until you include that missing piece, that cousin. And I'm here to tell you that them saying that the other alleged victim was not caught is a lie. I do have a document I'm going to show you that proves he was caught that day. He was. I don't know why they're coming to court lying and saying he's not. I do know why, but I'm not going to tell you why right now. And if you follow this story, I've already told you basically. But in this whole case, they have to now make Marchello the mastermind because you have taken the actual mastermind out of the case. So when there's no mastermind, there's no person that's committing this crime there. We have to put a new person in that spot or there's no crime, right? Okay, so let's get into it. This is the testimony of the two alleged victims that actually should have been suspects. And then also know the nature of it. The two alleged victims are white, they're Caucasian. Marchello is an African-American male, but they always refer to the defendants, the unknown defendant that we lied and said was not caught. They refer to him as a black male, and they refer to Marchello as a black male. So the defendants are referred to as black males. Knowing that defendant that was not caught is the type of black male that you would consider Sinbad, that light bright. You would consider Drake, very light bright, that type of black male. Let's say Alicia Keys black, that's how he's black. Who else can I think of? Do I have any more that I could think of? Mariah Carey, that's the perfect black male. She's not a black male, I'm sorry, girl. But you know how she's black, but she is so racially ambiguous that you would never, if she committed a crime, you would never say, it was a black woman. You would never say that. You would not. You would mistake Mariah Carey for being white. That's how that defendant is. And they're calling them to the jury two black males. So the defendants are two black males. We have one got away, lies, but defendants, two black males, victims, two white males, lies, they were not victims. They were willingly in that car. And the reason they were in that car is because there's a club a street over that they left to go and get substances out the hood. The driver, the cousin, was taking them to go get these substances and get right, and then go back to the club. And all would have been done. He would have picked Marchello up, hey, I'm headed this way, dropped Marchello off, and he would have completed his sale of whatever he was doing with these guys, and these guys would have ended right back up at that club, except for the police pulled them over for running the stop sign. So in all actuality, what should have been done is the cousin should have pulled over the car because he had not gotten yet to the destination to serve the two guys. So there was no proof of anything. So had he just pulled over, what kind of case could this have really been? Because you just got four guys in a car. You ran a stop sign. That could have been a ticket. But the reason the cousin had to elude and had to get away is because the cousin was already out on bond for the same situation, a very similar situation. And he could not get caught up. He could not be, he wasn't even supposed to be driving, I don't believe. He couldn't even be in that position. So this is why he, instead of pulling over for this stop sign, ran off and ditched the car in a dead-end cul-de-sac and jumps out the car and runs. That is why he did that, because he couldn't be brought up on more charges. And later we're going to go through, and I'm not incriminating nobody, so I'm going to blank out the faces. I'm going to show you guys these two mug shots of the two black guys. It'll be blurred out, so I want to see, do you see them as two black guys? One black guy with dreads, one black guy taller, shorter, smaller, this or that. They can't describe him, can't nothing, and say he got away. Do you really see them as two black guys? And then also, I'm going to show you the differences in the rap sheets. Marchello having no rap sheet at all. No priors, no nothing when this alleged crime happened. The driver having a rap sheet from here to there already before this crime, and a list and slew of charges after this crime. Okay, so to be honest, this case really should have fell on that driver. And they're saying the driver wasn't caught. So now, because that puzzle piece is missing, Marchello's the next up. We have to blame him. Instead of all three being on trial. But then in that case, if all three were on trial, there would be nobody to press the issue, basically. In that case, probably wouldn't have went forward no further. So what they had to do was create a divide and press the two white guys in the back going to get high. We have to put them against the two black guys. That's how they had to play this for this to continue and be able to go through court and be processed as a crime, basically. You will see the conflict in these two guys' testimonies. Do know that after this happened, Marchello went off to jail. I do believe they arrested the driver. And if they did not arrest him, I do believe they took him and questioned him at least. Okay? And Marchello went off to jail, and the two guys were given that $60 that was in Marchello's pocket, given that, and given back their car to go back to the club. And they went back to the club that night that they said they were so detrimentally, like in fear of their lives, they went back to that club to continue partying. They didn't, unfortunately, get right, but they got back in time to see the shows. And finished their night off. And after that, they moved away. They moved away from Orlando, Florida, never to really, one returned back, the other never came back. They moved to Vermont. They both moved to Vermont. They were subpoenaed to come to give their depositions. They never showed up for that. Subpoenaed several times. And subpoenaed for trial. They never showed up to trial. Trial date came and nobody but Marchello Jackson showed up. Instead of the case being dropped because there's nobody to press the charges against Marchello. Marchello's own lawyer asked for a continuance. And after getting the continuance, he then asked the court to give him reimbursement for fees to travel to Vermont, and for travel, for fees, and for lodging to go travel for Vermont. And the way he labeled it was preparation of case. But what he really did was serve the two guys their subpoenas in person in Vermont, because since they weren't coming to court, he made sure that they got those subpoenas. Basically, I believe they threatened them and made them come to court. Either you're going to testify against this client, or baby, you going down for this, this, and this. That's exactly, most likely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, what I believe happened. And they didn't really want to participate in this. They wanted to let it go. But, you know, when this happens, it's either you or me. It was either them go down, which they probably would have stood a better chance, or it's you are going to put this on Marchello Jackson. Also, I'm going to tell you, I know that cousin was caught. There's no way he wasn't caught. That driver was caught. So now I'm going to go and research through and see, can I find, like, if he was caught, was there a trial in his case? And were the same officers that were on trial in Marchello's case, were they the same witnesses called in that case? And I want to compare the two cases. If I can order these transcripts, because transcripts are always public. So I can order them transcripts. I just got to see what trial would have been held right around the time Marchello had of that alleged guy that got away. And once I pulled that transcript, I want to see what these same upstanding officers said when the trial was reflected. Because in that reflected trial of the driver, they would have lied and said that Marchello got away. That's how they would have had to do that, because they would have had to justify why that second defendant is not there. And what did they say in that trial? Okay, so that's going to be coming up. So let's jump back into the testimonies. I will put a timestamp so you can skip on the replay. You can skip all of my gibbering. Y'all can skip all of that and jump straight into it. Okay. The court, call your first witness, Ms. Brennan. And then she calls Mr. Nevins, whereupon Mr. Nevins was called as a witness, and having first been duly sworn, this is one of the white guys that were in the car. Okay. Was called as a witness, and having first been duly sworn by the clerk, was examined and testifies as follows. Mr. Sims, Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I believe one of the witnesses is in the room and the rule has been invoked. Okay, so at that point, what happened, Mr. Wintle, no, because it has their first names and I'm trying not to give their first names. Nevins is giving his testimony, and Mr. Wintle is still in the courtroom. And the reason that they have them in separately is because they don't want them to hear what the other one says. If one was in there testifying, possibly all those conflicts, and the other one heard it, what he said, possibly all the conflicts between the two witnesses would not be present in this case, because he would have knew what his friend said, and then he could have said the opposite. But by having them in there separately, they were able to allow them to incriminate their own selves and get caught up in lies. Okay, the court. Oh, it said, yeah, Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I believe one of the witnesses is in the room and the rule has been invoked. Yes. Ms. Brennan says, yes, you have to go out. So one of the, Wintle is the guy that is taken out of the courtroom. Ms. Brennan, yes, you have to go out. The court, all right. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Sims. May I proceed? How they didn't catch that? Direct examination from Ms. Brennan. She's the state's assistant attorney. Would you state your name for us, please? And could you spell it? Okay. So Nevins, Nevins. How old are you, Mr. Nevins? 24. Do you live here in Orlando? Now, I like how they called him in the last transcript a kid. He was 24, but they never referred to Marchello as a kid. Marchello was only 19 when this happened. So he's 24 and Marcello's 19. Who's more of a kid? But when you refer to them as kids, you have a different picture in your mind. Willie D, I love Willie D lie. He tell you right off rip. They refer to them as kids when they're, and I'm only making differences in race because race plays a part in Marcello's case. When a white person is basically accused of something, they refer to them as a kid. When a black man does something, they refer to them as black male with this and that, or black man. They make them, they dehumanize them basically. And calling them a white kid basically makes them more seem innocent, and it gives more innocence to them when you call them a kid. but he was substantially older than Marchello. Marchello was the true kid in this whole case. Okay, how old are you, Mr. Nevins? 24. Do you live here in Orlando? Yes, ma'am. Where do you work? I work at Preferred Automotive in Tampa. You work in Tampa? Yes, ma'am. What do you do for Preferred Automotive? I manage a car audio and accessory shop. Do you know why you're here today? Yes, I do. I want to take you back to August 12th of last year, 2001. Do you remember that day? Yes, I do. Where were you that day? We were at the, and then it says the club's name, but I'm not disclosing the club. We were at the club. Who were you with? I was with Mr. Wintle and also some other friends of mine. Were your other friends, did they drive with you there? No, they did not. It was just me and Mr. Wintle. And then you met up with the other friends there. Mm-hmm. And where is the club located? It's off of Orange Blossom Trail or OBT, probably south of Colonial. Okay, you said you drove there with Mr. Wintle. Whose car is it? Actually, Mr. Wintle drove my car there. I wasn't able to drive at the time because my license was suspended. And why his license was suspended is the question. Okay, where did you park? We parked in the dirt parking lot right next to the hotel out in the back. Is there a hotel connected to the club where they're at the... Okay. It doesn't make sense because I'm saying club twice, but remember, I'm not saying the name of the club. So just listen carefully. Is there a hotel connected to the club? They're at the, and then it has the name, but I say club. Yeah, actually, the hotel surrounds the club. The club is more like inside by the pool. How far off of Orange Blossom Trail did you have to park? Actually, it's pretty much right on Orange Blossom Trail. The parking lot is. How far into the parking lot is my question. Like 5 or 6 cars? Rows back? Yeah. How long were you at? What time did you get to the club? I actually don't recall. I believe it was around approximately 8 o'clock. Do you remember what day of the week it was? Sunday night. Do you remember when you left the club? It was later on. It was maybe 11:30, 12 o'clock. Anything eventful happened while you were at the club between 8 o'clock and 11:30 and 12? No, we were just standing around chatting with our friends. What happened once you left? Actually, we started walking to the parking lot and we told our friends goodbye. We walked out to the car. Who was with you? Just Wintle. Okay. And we got in the car, and on the way there, somebody asked us for a cigarette and we said no. We got in the car and somebody knocked on the window. And I guess Wintle thought it was one of our friends. Mr. Sims, pay attention to that because the other one's going to say something different. I'll read it again. We got in the car and somebody knocked on the window. And I guess Mr. Wintle thought it was one of our friends, Mr. Sims. This is Marchello's defense lawyer. Your Honor, I'm going to object to the narrative nature. Sustained. Thank you. By Ms. Brennan. Be a little more responsive just to the question instead of going on. Okay. Where? You said got in the car. Where were you seated in the car? I was seated in the passenger seat. And that's where he dropped his damn wallet, in that passenger seat. But he was seated in the passenger seat. I was seated in the passenger seat. And where was Mr. Wintle? In the driver's seat. Once you were in the car, someone knocked on the window? Yes, ma'am. Whose window? The driver's window. Did you see who it was? No, because my tent was kind of dark. And what happened then? He put a G inside the window. And did you see the G? I'm not saying G-U-N. I'm not saying the whole word because YouTube friendly stuff. Did you see the G-U-N? Yes. And where did he put the G-U-N inside the window? He put it to John's head. Mr. Wintle's head, I'm sorry. And what happened then? Then we both ended up getting out the car. The other person had kind of forced us out. The other person, there was another person that was there also. They both were like on one side of the car, or on each side of the car actually. See how you just changed that? There was another person there also. They both were like on one side of the car, or on each side of the car actually. Who? Did you know this other person? No. He didn't know that person. That's his get right man. Can you describe him other than he was a black male? Old? Young? Younger? Okay, so the question is old, young? And the answer is younger. Okay, question. Did you see the one that put the G-U-N in the window to Mr. Wintle's head? Yes, I did. Not at the time though, because he's outside the car, correct? Okay, the question is because he's outside the car, and then the answer is correct. One's on your side of the car and one's on the other side, correct? You see how she's guiding him back to saying the right thing? Because at first he said they're both on the right, on one side. Then he catches himself and says on either side. And now she's enforcing that they're on either side. Okay. Is your window up or down on your side? My window is up. What happened then once they are both there? They told us to get in the back seat. Did you see the weapon on the other man? The one that was closest to you on your side? On my side of the car? That's a question. Yes. Actually, they switched sides. And then, no, at that time, answer, no. At the time you're being told to get in the back seat by the man that's next to you on your side, did you see him with any weapon? No, I did not. Okay, did you get in the back seat? Yes. Is your car 2-door or 4-door? 2-door. What did Mr. Wintle do? He was also pushed in the back seat. And where were the men now? They were getting in the car. How you push somebody in a 2-door seat in the back? When you know, anybody been in a 2-door seat, know you got to lift the front seat up, get around the seat belt, and struggle to get your butt in the back seat. You don't just jump in the back seat of a 2-door car, but okay. Okay, is your car 2-door or 4-door? 2-door. What did Mr. Wintle do? He was also pushed in the back seat. And where were the men now? They were getting in the car. And who got in what seat? Well, the man who was on the driver's side got in the driver's side. And they got in like that. But they had to switch sides. Oh, please don't tell me my laptop going dead. No. Do you know why? He couldn't drive a stick my car is not an automatic. Did you actually watch him try to drive it and couldn't? Or did he say he couldn't drive a stick? Yeah, they said they couldn't drive it. Did you? So they switched seats, and then what happened? See, this is why that story's coming in, because Marchello was not the driver, and they already know that this crime most likely has to be on the person driving the vehicle. So now they're trying to make the driver more innocent, basically like Marcello's forcing me to drive this car. That's what they're kind of basically trying to make this known, because the question in everybody's mind is, where the hell is this driver? Because that's what we need to know. So now they're coming up with the story of them switching seats and stuff like that. Okay. Did you actually watch him try to drive it and couldn't? Or did he say he couldn't drive it? Yeah, they said they couldn't drive it. Did you? So they switched seats, and then what happened? And then the man with the GUN was in the passenger seat, and they started. Did you see him then, once he's in the car with you? Yes, ma'am. And can you describe him? He was also a black male, had more of dreads. Believe he had a white shirt on at the time. And then, what happened then? Now, pause a minute. I'm asking, how did they describe Marchello as a black male with dreads when that day, that same exact day, I braided Marcello's hair? You see how I got dreads? I braided it down to his scalp. You see how the front of my hair is braided? I braided it straight back. I braided all his dreads straight back. And then Marchello used to put a scully around his head, those little stockings. And then he would put one of those, what was that called? Like a beanie. He would put a beanie over his head. So that day that I just braided his hair, how are they calling him a black male with dreads? That part I don't get. Because also they took a picture of Marchello that night that they tried to show to the jury and say it was a prior arrest picture, which it was not. It was actually a picture that was taken that night. How did they see him as a black man with dreads? His dreads were not loose like this. They weren't. They were braided down. Okay. Okay, he was also a black male, had more of dreads, believe. He had a white shirt on at the time. Why would you believe? And what happened then? Then they proceeded to leave the parking lot. Did you know either of these individuals? No, ma'am. Had you ever seen them before? No, ma'am. What happened once you left the parking lot? This is why we needed that parking lot surveillance that they withheld from us, because the parking lot surveillance would have proved and showed everything. It was one entrance in that club and one entrance out on a big club night that they alleged there was no security, there was no cameras, which I found out in an article later where they caught a suspect that there was in fact cameras in that parking lot. They claimed there was no other patrons, nobody around, just Marchello, his cousin, and these two victims/witnesses. That was it. Those were the only people there. That is why we needed that surveillance camera to prove that Marchello was not in fact at that club. So when they took that surveillance camera away, took the surveillance tapes away, then we only can rely on the testimonies of the cops and the two victims/witnesses that are trying to save their own asses. So we needed that surveillance, and it should have been pulled, but yet they did not pull it at all. And then they lied and told us there was no surveillance. Okay. Had you ever seen them before? No, ma'am. What happened once you left the parking lot? Actually, when we went driving out the parking lot, we asked them to let us go, and he said no. And he asked us to give him all our money and everything. What else what was said to you? Well, he asked, I'm sorry, I messed up reading. Well, we asked to get out the car, and he said no. And they said that they were going to take us by the lake and ill us. Now, that lake was never introduced. They never said none of that until trial day came. So they added that on. There was an add-on to escalate the severity of this. Okay, they said that that was not in their original statements. And they added this. And they said that they were going to take us by the lake and kill us because he didn't like homosexuals. And he said was, so now they're putting hate crime in this. It's crazy. None of this was from the beginning. All of this was concocted when trial came. Anything else said to you? Answer, shaking head. Now, the club is a homosexual club. Yes, ma'am. And you are homosexual, Mr. Nevins. Yes, ma'am. When he said give us all your money, what did you do? Actually, we gave him our wallets. We didn't have any money in our wallets. And then I begged him to let us out the car. And I realized that I had $60. Listen to this. This is key. I realized I had $60 in my pocket. It was actually 320s that I had just gotten. And I gave him that and asked him to let us out the car. And that was when he said, no, we're going to take you to the lake and ill you. Question, which one said that? Answer, that was actually the passenger, the man with the GUN. See how everything, so the driver is just so innocently just, oh, I'm driving because my cousin's making me do all of this. How is the driver getting out of all of this? Everything is now placed on the passenger, which is Marchello. Okay, so now the passenger basically said that he's going to take them to the lake and ill them, right? Which one said that? That was actually the passenger, the man with the GUN. The man with the GUM, Did you give him your $60? Yes, ma'am. And what denominations? 320s. I had just come. Then he stops as a pause. Did you think you were going to be ill? Yes, ma'am, we did. We both were really scared and shaken up. Who do you give your wallet to? Or did you just put it in the front? No, we handed it to the passenger, both of us. So how did that other guy get his wallet back if he handed it to the passenger? But okay. We handed it to the passenger, both of us. Did you see the GUM, the gum. Did you see the GUN past the time that we had stuck it? Let me read it again. Did you see the GUN past the time that he stuck it in the window and put it to Mr. Wintel's head? Yes, ma'am. He was actually, then it's a space. He had it to both our heads while he was making us give us the wallets and the money. Yes, ma'am. Let me read again. Yes, ma'am. He actually, then he pauses. He had it to both of our heads while he was making us give us the wallets and the money. That's exactly how he says it. Making us give us the wallets and the money. Question, can you describe the GUN? Well, it was more of a revolver type. It had a barrel, which I guess would hold like 6 bullets. Color, do you recall? I believe it might have been silver, but I don't quite recall. Question, did the GUN ever touch any part of your body? Answer, I believe it had touched me in the face. I was a little bit shaken, sick, up at the moment, but then ... It's faded out. Do you recall what it felt like, or were you too shaken up? I was too shaken up. I don't recall. Question, where was the car driving when this is taking place? Answer, when we were leaving the club, the parking lot, we headed across OBT and down some roads. I really wasn't paying too much attention, other than I noticed that we passed. Oh, you lying. I'm sorry, y'all. You lying. The testimony of the cops was that he was coming down Westmoreland, ran the stop sign at Livingston. He is describing coming out the parking lot, crossing OBT onto Livingston. That is not the path. For him to have been coming from, for the driver to have been coming from Westmoreland. So, ooh, guys, let me draw this. I keep telling y'all I'm gonna draw it. I'm about to draw it. Let's get these artist skills together today. Cause baby, I want my man home. Y'all done got enough. Florida DOC done got enough of time out of him. Free time. So I do not have a pencil in front of me. I got a pen. We finna work with what I got. Okay, so let me draw this real quickly for you guys, and then we'll get right back to that. So this is gonna be the club. Can y'all see that? I'll get up and show it to you. Okay, so let's say this is the club here. Okay, the entrance. No, the club's going to be about over here. But there was an entrance. There was one way in and one way out of that club. One way in, one way out. Okay, so the club is on the street OBT. That's what they refer to it as. Orange Blossom Trail, club on the street, right? So now, when this victim / witness says that he came out the parking lot. Now he's saying basically all this robbery and stuff happened back there up in the parking lot towards the dirt. It happened back there. So he had to come out the parking lot, come out. And then he just said he crossed over OBT. Okay, so when he crossed over OBT, you can't cross straight over to that street. I just showed y'all on that ride along video. The street kind of you got to kind of go up some, and then you could turn down that street. So the street that he's referring to is called Livingston. Okay, nowhere during the cop's testimony or anybody else say that car traveled down Livingston. And now he just said until the cop, they ran a stop sign and the cop tried to get him. So they're saying that the Westmoreland is this street over. Here's the 7-Eleven where Marchello said he was. 7-Eleven, 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 7 in the back door, little Joe. Yes. Okay, this is Westmoreland. Money is going to get me for writing in her sketchbook, but baby, he's lying. And they're caught in the lie. And it just stands. Okay. Now this is the stop sign. Yes. Alrighty. There we go. Let's get it. How far I gotta get to for you to be able to see? Okay, so the guy that is testifying now is saying this is the club that sits on OBT. He's coming out. He said they came out and they went down the street. You cannot go straight down the street. They said they crossed over OBT. But the only way for you to cross over OBT is to veer over a little bit and come down Livingston. And he said they ran that stop sign right there. Okay, per our upstanding police officer's account, the vehicle was coming from this way. There's that 7-Eleven that Marchello walked up to, right? The vehicle is coming from this way. And the cop is coming from this way on Westmoreland. So the vehicle that Marchello's riding in is coming from this way. The vehicle the cop is riding in comes from this way. And this stop sign gets ran coming from across. And then he fails to stop and goes on a chase. The guy that is testifying is saying that the car come out that club and came and ran a stop sign this way. That's two totally different stories. Okay, so now he has a different account than even the police officers have. Okay, so let's go back to that. Okay, the man with the GUN. Did you give him your $60? Yes, ma'am. And what denominations? 320s. And I had just, then it's space. Did you think you were going to get illed? Yes, ma'am, we did. We both were really scared and shaken up. Who did you give your wallet to? Or did you just put it in the front? No, because his wallet was found in that front seat. No, we handed it to the passenger, both of us. Did you see the GUN past the time that he had stuck it in the window and put it to Mr. Wintel's head? Yes, ma'am. He was actually, space. He had it to both our heads while he was making us give us the wallets and the money. He meant them. Can you describe the GUN? Well, it's more of a revolver type. It had the barrel, which I guess could hold like 6 bullets. Color, do you recall? I believe it might have been silver, but I don't quite recall. Did the GUN ever touch any part of your body? I believe it had touched me in the face. I was a little bit shooken, sick, up at the moment, but do you recall what it felt like or were you too shaken up? I was too shaken up. I don't recall. Where, then a space, was the car driving when this is taking place? When we were leaving the club, the parking lot, we headed across OBT and down some roads. Really wasn't paying too much attention. Other than I noticed that we passed and ran a stop sign and passed a police officer. And what happened then? I mean, through that time, we were begging them to let us out of the car and take the car. And then after, I guess we drove for a short distance, they fled out of the car and the police officers began to speak to us and chase them. They didn't chase Marchello because Marchello never ran. Marchello was right where that car stopped. Did you see the police behind you? Yes, ma'am. Did they have sirens and lights going? Yes, ma'am. The police said he didn't have time to put his sirens on. So he's saying, yes, they had sirens and lights going, but they only had the lights on, per the police. And he's almost next to God, so we got to go with his story, right? Okay. Yes, ma'am. At that point, that's a question, at that point. And then answer. Actually, I believe once he saw him running the stop sign, he began to follow us for a minute or two, and then he turned on his lights. Question, and that also is opposed to what the cops say. Did the car stop? The car you were in? Yes. And what happened when you all stopped? It stopped and the doors flew open and both jumped out and took off running. And that's a lie, because it's proven that Marchello did not run. Only the driver that you claim got away ran. Okay. And he ran and got away from a perimeter. He got away from the overhead helicopters. He got away from the dogs. He got away from all of that. And 2 officers chasing him. So he was freaking track star. He got away. And what happened when you all stopped? It stopped and the doors flew open and they both jumped out and took off running. And what did you do? We actually jumped out the car and told the police officer, go chase them. How many officers were there? Do you remember? There was one at, like, as soon as the car stopped, and more arrived after that. How long had you been in the car from the club to when the car was stopped by the police? How long was that? Do you have any idea? I know. And then he is a space. Answer, yeah, it all seems so fast. Maybe a minute or 2 minutes. It was pretty quick. I mean, we got a little ways, but, and then it's a space. You weren't driven around for hours or anything like that. No. Where, once you're out of the car and the police are there, how far away from the clubhouse? The club, basically. That I don't know. I guess maybe a half a mile to a mile. Okay. So what happened once you told the officers to go after them? Actually, they came up and they thought, in their space, they put us against the car and made us stand there. And then the officers went and chased them and started filling out reports and stuff like that. We found our wallets laying on the ground. Pinpoint that. We found our wallets laying on the ground. I guess they had dropped them when they got out the car. Now, listen to what he's saying. One guy had his own wallet on him. The other guy's wallet was found on the floorboard of the car. He's saying, we found our wallets laying on the ground. I guess they dropped them when they got out the car. Question, who found them? Myself and John. Oh, I'm not even supposed to say that. Myself and the other. Where were they? They were outside the passenger door, on the floor, or on the ground. And what did you do with them when you saw them there? We either picked them up or we showed the officer they were there and they picked them up. I don't recall. So you got your wallet back? Yes, ma'am. Did you ever get your $60 back? No, ma'am. What happened after that? We actually filled out a couple of reports and they asked us to go down and ID some people that they found hanging out somewhere. That is a lie as well, because that aligns with what that first arrested police officer said, that he chased Marchello 2 blocks away across the street, when in all actuality, even going by the police reports and everything else, he was arrested right there on Robinson Street. So he wasn't found 2 blocks down past Robinson Street. So there he's aligning with that officer saying that they found him and brought him back. They did not. It was all in this one same circle. Nobody left that scene except for the driver. That's the only person left that scene. Okay, we actually filled out a couple of reports and they asked us to go down and ID some people that they found hanging out somewhere. That is a lie. Did you go down where? It was somewhere in the neighborhood where See, he don't know what to say. He don't know what to say because they never left. So he has to lie on spot. Close to where we were at. And then question, and how did you get there? Answer, in the back of the police car. Did you identify someone? Yes, ma'am. And who was it that you identified? It was actually the passenger. How long from the time the car stopped and the men got out running did you make this identification? Do you have any idea? Yeah, it wasn't right away. I can approximately guess it may be 20 to 30 minutes. What was that question? How long from the time the car stopped and the men got out running did you make this identification? Okay. It wasn't right away. I can approximately guess it may be 20 to 30 minutes. How sure were you of your identification? 100% sure. And that was the passenger that they had caught? Yes, ma'am. Do you see the passenger here in the courtroom today? Yes, I do. Can you point him out and describe what he's wearing, please? Him, the black jacket or dark jacket and the white undershirt. Ms. Brennan, Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant. The court. Mr. Sims, any objection? Mr. Sims, no, sir. The court. All right. The record will so reflect. Ms. Brennan, I don't believe I have any other questions at this time. The court. Mr. Sims, cross-examination? Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sims, cross-examination. Good morning, Mr. Nevins. We've not had an opportunity to meet yet, have we? No, sir. Now, you've known Mr. Wintle for approximately 4 months. 3 months as of August 12th of 2001. Maybe somewhere around there. And you all had progressed from being friends to being in a relationship. Is that right? Correct. Shortly after this time, the relationship fizzled out. And although you remain friends, he now lives in Vermont. And you live in Orlando, correct? Correct. Now, the club, you had taken him to probably at least 4 to 8 times during that summer. Is that right? True. One of your favorite times was on Sundays when you would go there and get to see whatever the show was and just visit with your friend. Am I right? Correct. This club was a big club and Sunday night was a big A night. There is no way you can make me believe there was no witnesses at that club. Okay, correct. And you're not complete, then he pauses, quite completely sure that it was 8 o'clock on that evening that you got to the club, is it? Answer, I said approximately. Question, it was light out, but it's light pretty late in the summer, correct? Correct. You spent some time around the pool talking to friends and whatnot. Somewhere around there, right? And then you spent some time inside watching the shows. Shows don't start till after midnight, but okay. And you spent some time inside watching the shows, correct? And having a drink or two, right? Nodding head. Right? Correct. Now, the club, and then he says theirs, and then he pauses. It's kind of on OBT, right? Before you reach State Road 50. Colonial, correct? Correct. And there's a hotel which folks can either come right there and stay for vacations or stay the night, right? Mm-hmm. Question, yes. Answer, yes. I'm sorry, we're transcribing, and the club is in the middle of it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we're being transcribed. And the club is in the middle of it, right? Yes. The club has had some troubles and they try to protect their patrons, right? Yes. So the parking lot has one entrance along 441, or I guess South Orange Blossom Trail, is a fence, right? Where the parking lot begins. Yes. The parking lot is clear of trees or anything within the parking lot, right? It runs back with the fence, and then there's a fence back along the lake. We can see a fence back to the, then he pauses. That would be west, correct? Correct. The fence travels up here, and the fence comes all the way up here next to the hotel and whatnot. Am I right? Yes. This one little entrance and exit way. Yes. Where they have some cones and some other folks out in the area where you come in and out, right? Correct. Make sure you're here and not hassling people. You're here for one reason, and that's to come in the club and have a good time, correct? Now, there's a big old, I don't know what that lake is. Do you? That's behind the club? Answer, no. Question, it's a big old lake, right? Answer, correct. And then there's some trees back before, and then he pauses. Because it gets kind of woodsy around there, right? Answer, yes. And that evening or late afternoon, you remember that your car parked, and then pause, came through that entranceway and parked back, and then pause, because it was kind of crowded on Sundays, right? Yes. It parked back in some area. Actually, the back corner. So he questions, it parked back in some area. And then he answers, actually the back corner. And then the question, the back corner, all the way back where you could see the lake, right? Answer, if you tried real hard. Question, I guess you could see the lake from anywhere in there. Answer, I mean, there's trees there, so. Question, right, but it's in the back corner. Answer, correct. Question, okay, this was a pretty harrowing, I don't even know what that means, harrowing experience, wasn't it? Yes. Answer, I'm sorry. Harrowing, very frightful, scary. Answer, yes, yes. Question, yes? Answer, yes. Question, you think it was around 11:30 or 12 that you left, is that right? Correct. Now you're the one who introduced Mr. Wintle to the club, so you were kind of familiar with it, am I right? Yes. You had gone there more times than just with him, true? Question, the answer is true. And you knew you had to drive up South Orange Blossom Trail, right? Answer, yes. Question, were you familiar with all those neighborhoods just the other side of the trail going east? Had you ever been back in there near Beach Street? No, I have not. Near Livingston? No, sir. Down Westmoreland? I don't know what the streets are. Question, right. Those are not familiar to you? No, sir. You stayed clear of those areas. Didn't you live south back then? So you had to travel south of Orange Blossom Trail to get to the club. From Colonial, we had to head south. Oh, you traveled up Colonial, then headed south? Question, yes. Okay, now, you are actually in your car, and Mr. Wintle, your friend, is next to you when somebody comes up beside him. Yes, sir. All right. And you say, it's this gentleman right here, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Marchello Jackson. Yes, sir. Now, there's somebody on your side also that you became aware of later, correct? And the best description you give of him is simply that he was black and was younger. He was actually older, and he was actually an African-American male that was as pale as probably this white piece of paper. Okay. Simply a black man was younger, correct? Was he light black or dark black? Question. Because really in this case, all eyes appearing at it, when that police came up to that crowd, most likely he's seen 3 white guys and 1 black guy. That's what he most likely computed in his head. Okay, so now he's questioning him. Was he light black or dark black? That I'm not sure. How could you not be? That's the only thing you're gonna notice. That I'm not sure. Did he have an afro, have dreads? He did not have dreads. Was he tall? Was he short? He was probably a little bit shorter than my height. Okay, you had a pretty good opportunity to see him because he's the one that got you out the car and into the back seat, right? No, we were more forced. I really didn't stare at the person while I'm being pushed in the back seat. Question, so you didn't get a chance to look at him at all? I did see him while they were driving, yes, and then you still didn't realize he's light bright, almost white. Okay. So both you and Mr. Wintle actually had to get out of your 2-door vehicle. Answer, yes. All the way out? They pushed the seats forward and forced you in the back. They didn't just force us in the back. They didn't get to seats up for you. Oh, this is... Okay, let me reread that. They didn't... The answer was they didn't just force us in the back. So question, didn't get to seats up for you? That still don't make no sense. It's a question. Didn't get 2 seats up for you. It probably means didn't get the seats up for you. And then he says shaking head. Did they bruise you up? No. Now the words that were said to you that night, I mean, you weren't drunk, were you? No. You'd had some drinks, but you're not a big drinker. Am I right? I mean, and he had all these DUI. We gonna go through his arrest record too, and why he ain't got his little license, and why he having other people drive. Girl, all them DUIs and standing in traffic and substance abuse and all of those rehabs, like, girl, but listen to him. Okay. I mean, I only had a couple drinks. I was fine. I could have driven. Question, right. So you're very sure of what you saw and what you heard that night? Yes, sir. And those chilling words will never leave you. Am I right? Nodding head. Is that yes? Yes. And in fact, from the moment you heard them, they resonate in your mind since, right? I mean, you still think about those words, right? Answer, sometimes I try to block it out, but, and then it's a space. Question, then the words that you were told, and you were told by Marchello Jackson, not the gentleman, right? I believe so. And the words that you heard were, we're going to take you to the lake. Answer, yes, sir. We're going to kill you. Yes, sir. We don't like homosexuals. Correct. You did it. You did not. And then it's a space. And then answer. That wasn't quite. And then he pauses. I'm sorry. That, and then answer. That wasn't quite the terminology. But I, and then space. What was the terminology? Am I allowed to say it? Yes, you are. We're in the court of law. We want to hear what exactly was said. He said more like, I hate effing, and then it's a derogatory phrase there. And I mean, he never used the word homosexual. And he said definitely he was going to kill you. Yes, sir. And you believed him. Yes, sir. And that was something that you wanted. Oh, I'm sorry. And that was something that you, yeah, that's what it says. That doesn't make sense. Hold on. And that was something that you wanted. And then it pauses. If you ever got out of this, pause, everybody to know, just like this jury and this judge and Miss Brennan today, right? Yes, sir. Now, you wrote a report about what had occurred to you on the evening of this event. Am I right? Correct. Was the report written before or after you had identified Mr. Jackson as being involved? That was written before. That was definitely written before. Yes, sir. You wrote one report and signed it, and then you testified was true and correct. Answer, correct. And the officer signed off on it, correct? Question, and later you ID'd Mr. Jackson, right? Right? Answer, yes, sir. But you never wrote anything down about that. And again, because you'd already done your report. Correct? All right. Well, the answer was correct. And then now this is another question. All right. And you are also sure that you had no money in your wallet, and nor did Mr. Wintle when they handed them over to Mr. Jackson, when you handed them over to Mr. Jackson. Answer, correct. But you had then remembered because you thought maybe if they got some money in my car, they'll let us go. Answer, yes, sir. Question, you remembered that you had $60. Answer, yes. Had you gone to the ATM for that? Actually, I got it from a bartender. A bartender? He gave me 3 $20 bills. And you put it, what, on a credit card? Or did you just give it, or did he just give it to you? Because you all are friends. Answer, he just gave it to me because we're friends. Why was that bartender never questioned? He should have been questioned. He just gave it to me because we were friends. Did you say, look, I'm busted? And he said, well, here's $60. Answer, yeah, yes, sir. And you thanked him. Answer, yep. Question, so you're quite sure that $60 is exactly what you had, and not a penny more and not a penny less? Answer, 100%. Question, they were all in 20s. Answer, 3 $20 bills. Question, okay. And you know that Mr. Wintle didn't have any money. That's why you needed the money. Answer, right. Question, you're older. You were kind of taking care of Mr. Wintle. Answer, correct. Question, kind of watched out for him. Answer, you could say so. Question, okay, when you wrote your report to the police that night, You wanted to be sure that you gave them every bit of information that they needed to prosecute this case fully, right? Answer, yes, sir. You have been shooken sick up. Yes. You have been carjacked. Yes, sir. Robbed at G-Point. Correct. You have been kidnapped. And the police said to you, be as thorough as you can be on this report. Answer, yes, sir. So you took it very seriously and listened to them. Answer, yes, I did. Question, and you actually told them that somebody said, I hate, derogatory word, in that statement, right? Yes, sir. You didn't add the F word in. No. Just trying not to be nasty. Yes, sir. Well, I was shook and sick up. Question, right. And in that statement, you never mentioned to the police that they said they were going to take you to the lake, did you? Answer, I should have. I should have. Answer is, I should have. Question, did you ever say to the police in your statement that they said that they were going to ill you? Wait, I'm sorry. Let me read it again. They said they were going to kill us, ill us. I'm sorry, YouTube. I should have. Okay, let's take a look at, it's Mr. Nevin's statement written on 8/13/2001. Mr. Sims, may I approach your honor? The court, yes, sir. By Mr. Sims. At 00:22 hours, right after the incident, correct? Nodding head. May you take a look at that and review your memory? Witness complies. Are you finished? Yes. Did you mention the lake in that report? No, I did not. No, I did not. In fact, you said in the report they were going to shoot us. But you didn't say they said they were going to ill us, correct? Correct. And in fact, when the car left the parking lot and went traveling down South Orange Blossom Trail, they didn't go past the club's fence in the parking lot and then turn right towards the big lake that was right behind, did they? I don't recall. Well, you didn't end up in a lake. No, we did not. The lake was 10 seconds away from you. If you went around the parking lot, right? It could have been any lake, right? But you didn't end up in a lake. No. In fact, you didn't see a lake anywhere around you where you ended, correct? No, I did not. Now, at 00:22 hours, which was 12:22 a.m., after midnight on the 13th, you told the police they took all my money, $80, correct? I told the police 60, but I made a mistake and I wrote down 80. So although you said 60, you wrote 80 with, and then he pauses, on this actual statement, correct? Okay, question. And it's not like that 6 is a, and then it's a blank. That 8 is like a typo for a 6, is it? That's definitely how you make your 8s, isn't it? Yes, it is. And you saw that when you read through your report again, didn't you? Nodding head. Now, when the car stopped, Would it help you to draw the area? Would it help you to draw the area where the car stopped? Do you remember it? Very little bit. The circle. You don't remember the circle? No, I don't. Well, let me see if I can refresh your memory. The car stopped right at space in front of some railroad tracks, correct? Remember that? I remember being stopped with some kind of houses or something on. Okay, there's a circle that ends at the end of Beach Street. And then there is a little walkway that goes over some rocks. A big switching channel here. A light here. Ms. Brennan, Judge, I'm going to object. The witness has indicated he doesn't really remember the area. The court sustained. Mr. Sims, you don't remember anything about the area? I just remember some houses, some living places on the left and living places on the right. Do you remember the dead end? We were on a street with a tree. Okay. When you got out the car, you immediately said, we've been robbed. Go chase those guys. Yes, sir. And you were at G Point, right? When I got out the car, yeah, the police had you at G Point. I believe so. They put you up on the car, but pretty soon they realized you were a victim, right? And they let us go, and this is the answer, and they let us go pretty much right away. Question, right. They said, get up. They put you against the car. You explained what happened, right? That's correct. And then they went out after these two guys, correct? Correct, which is a lie. They only would have chased the driver. They didn't chase Marchello because Marchello didn't run. And then, which you'll see that the judge does determine in the end that there's no way that Marchello ran. And then also the judge, fast forwarding because it's not going to be in this video, the judge does determine that you cannot charge him with robbery because the monies does not align. This man wrote 80 and he said he knew he wrote 80 and he meant 80. But then later, once they checked Marcello's person and found that Marchello had 60 on him, they gave him that report back to scratch out and write in 60. Okay. Okay, you explained what happened, right? That's correct. And then they went after these two guys, correct? Correct. And then while you're waiting, you notice two wallets, correct? And you're not sure who picked them up, but you pointed them out to the police. I believe so. And the police said, okay, thanks. And they gave the wallets back to you, didn't they? Mm-hmm. And that's a yes. Yes. And finally, in that statement you wrote to the police that night after this terrible situation, you wanted to point out that these people said, I said, or they said, I hate F words, right? Yes, sir. So you drew a little arrow towards it to point that out, correct? Yes, sir. And you drew a little face like this, indicating by the arrow. So indicating, so he's pointing by the arrow. Did it you? That I don't recall. Mr. Sims, may I approach again, Your Honor? The court. Yes, sir. Mr. Sims. Okay, the question is, statement that you made that night at 00:22 hours. Would you look towards the middle and see what I've highlighted there? That's actually, so the answer is, that's actually in this space. The smiley face wouldn't be for that. That doesn't make sense, but let me read it again. That's actually, the smiley face wouldn't be for that. The part where we got out of the car, where they bailed the car, that would be for the smiley face. And that would be after that sentence, because I was happy that they left. Question. So when you say, we drove, they saw the cops, they said go and stopped. Later we bailed the car. Answer. Later they bailed the car. Oh, he caught. Later we bailed the car. Later they bailed the car is his answer. And then there's a happy face, right? Yes. Then there's an arrow extending from the happy face. The arrow is there because we added that comment in later. That was not at the point in the statement. That was just something that we had recalled, and we added that after. See how they amended their statements? We added that afterwards. And in fact, in your statement, you write, the guy that ID'd, the guy that held the G to my friend and my head, correct? Okay, read that again. And in fact, in your statements, you write, the guy that ID'd, oh, so it does, I am reading it correct, it just doesn't make sense. The guy that ID'd was the guy that held the GUN to my friend and my head face. My head face. My friend and my head, correct? Yes. Mr. Sims, I have nothing further. The court, redirect. Ms. Brennan, did you give, other than your written statement that you've been shown, did you verbally tell the officers what occurred? Yes, we did. Did you put down every single detail in your written statement? I believe I did not. I thought I did, but I guess I did not. Do you normally write that way? Your statement is fairly messy. No, we were really shook and sick, up and scared. And how long after this event did you write that statement? Only maybe a couple of minutes. So they wrote that statement right away. Then they claim that they brought Marchello back 30 minutes later. And then that's when they amended it. Okay. Only maybe a couple minutes. Is your handwriting that messy normally? No, it's not. Do you normally stay on the lines when you're writing? Yes, ma'am. Let me show you what's been marked now as State's Exhibit C for identification and ask you if you recognize that document. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Sims, Your Honor, may I take a look? I don't know what Exhibit C is. Ms. Brennan, sorry. The court, sure. By Ms. Brennan, is this the statement you wrote that evening? Answer, it does look like it is. Yes, ma'am. Has it been changed in any way, altered, edited, erased, anything? I'm not sure. I don't believe so. You don't believe so? Is that your statement? Has anything been added to it that was not in your handwriting, was not what you put on there, other than that tag that's been placed on there? There's a scribble there. I don't know what that is. When's the last time you've seen this statement? When this happened? Were you given a copy of it, or did you just write it and give it to the police that night? No, I was not. I just wrote it and gave it to the police that night. Okay. Ms. Brennan, Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move into evidence State's Exhibit C for identification. I have no objection, that's Mr. Sims. The court, it'll be admitted. The clerk, State's Identification C comes in as State's number 1, whereupon State's Exhibit number 1 was marked and received into evidence. Okay, Ms. Brennan, I don't have any other questions. The court, anything further? Mr. Sims, yes, sir. Re-cross-examination by Mr. Sims. You and Mr. Wintle wrote those statements out on top of the police cruiser, right? Right out there at the scene. I believe so, yes. So there wasn't a lot of light out there. No, sir. You did the best you could writing it, correct? Thank you. Nothing further. The court. What? The court asks what? Juror number 1406. I have a question for him. The court. If you could just get it from him with the lawyer's approach. Whereupon counsel approached the bench and conferred with the court out of the hearing of the jury as follows. The court. In a completely off-the-wall fashion, but when the assailants were switching sides, where was the GUN? Mr. Sims, I don't care if you ask that. Ms. Brennan, whatever. The court, all right. Mr. Sims, that's fine. Whereupon the bench conference was concluded. The court, when the assailants were switching sides, where was the GUN? The witness, when they were switching sides, and then it has a question mark, right. The court says, right. The witness says, walking around the vehicle, another question mark. So he's asking him, walking around the vehicle? The court says, apparently. Okay, the witness says, that I'm not sure. Okay, the court says, any further questions on that topic? By Ms. Brennan. When did you next see the GUN? Actually, they either both had weapons or they had switched it back over to the passenger when they got in the car. See how it got to get back on Marchello. They got to keep putting it back on Marchello. But my question is, when this GUN was found, why didn't they test it for fingerprints? Possibly because Marcello's fingerprints are not on it, and the driver's fingerprints are on it, the missing driver. Okay. The court, now you've confused me. Hold on, I'm confused too, girl. Okay, actually they either both had weapons or they switched it back over to the passenger when they got in the car. The court says, now you've confused me. The witness, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't totally recall that at the moment. Ms. Brennan. Ms. Brennan questions, when did you see the GUN next? The answer, from when they switched, the passenger had it. And he was pointing it towards us. Question, as he's in the car now with you? Answer, yes, ma'am. Question, when did you first see the GUN? Answer, when it was on the side of the car, they were pointing it at Mr. Wintle's head. When you said that side of the car, what side of the car do you mean? Answer, the driver's side. And who had it? That I'm not sure because my window tint was dark. And then it's a space. Did you see the person's face or just the GUN at the initial time the GUN was pulled on Mr. Wintle's face? Was put into Mr. Wintle's face. I may have seen the face. I know I saw, what? This man all over the place. I may have seen the face. That is exactly what he said. I keep thinking I'm saying it wrong, but this is how he's talking. I may have seen the face. I know I saw a GUN. And then once we got out, I saw the person, but I don't recall which one of the two it was at that moment. I believe it was the person who ended up on the passenger side. Question, was the same person that was initially at the driver's side? Yes, ma'am. Well, the person next to you on your side, when you were in the passenger seat before you got out of the car, did you see him with a GUN? That I don't recall. Question, at any time. Answer, I was more focused on what was going on the other side. Question, so you didn't really pay attention to the person on your side. Answer, well, I was being pushed into the back seat. So he on this side being assaulted, but he just looking at his friend over here, the attack from his friend, but the other guy's on this side attacking him. This makes no sense. Okay. So you didn't really pay attention to the person on your side. Well, I was being pushed into the back seat. I was kind of pulled out and pushed in the back. Okay, which you can't pull them out and push them in the back unless you're going to let that seat up because it's a two-door car. Ms. Brennan, I don't have any other questions. Mr. Sims, nothing, Your Honor. The court, you can step down. Witness excused. The court state called your next witness. This is the other guy. This is his friend that's in the back seat with him. Sorry, y'all. Excuse me. Okay, the state would like to call Mr. Wintle. This is when they made Mr. Nevins step out the courtroom. Mr. Wintle came in, and now he's going to be questioned. Now, there's going to be some conflicts between what Mr. Wintle said and what Mr. Nevins said already. Okay, whereupon Mr. Wintle was called as a witness and having first been duly sworn. So y'all, I'm almost finished with this because we're almost back up to the part where the police statements are. So I think I got a little less than 20 more pages to the end of their testimonies. I would have done, each one in a separate testimony. Each testimony in a separate live, but girl, let's get this over with. Let's put both of the alleged victims' testimonies together in one video. Okay, was called as a witness and having first been duly sworn by the clerk, was examined and testified as follows. The direct examination by state lawyer, Ms. Brennan. Would you state your name for us, please? Answer, Mr. Wintle. How old are you? 22. Where do you live? Williston, Vermont. Did you used to live here in Orlando? That's correct. When did you live here in Orlando? From March of 2000 to the middle of September 2000. Question, 2000? Answer, 2001. I'm sorry, 2001. So for about 6 months, that's correct. About 6 months. Answer, that's correct. Question, and did you come from Vermont, move here for 6 months, and then go back to Vermont? Yes. Did you work while you were here in Orlando? Yes. Where did you work at? Denny's on International Drive. Do you know why you are here today, Mr. Wintle? Yes. I want to take you back to August 12th. Of last year, 2001. Do you remember that day? Yes. Do you remember where you were that day? Yes. Where were you that day? At the club. Would you pull the microphone down a little bit towards you? Do you know what time you got at the club? Not exactly, no. I believe it to be the later part of the afternoon, early evening. And who were with you? Mr. Nevins. And did anyone else go with you to the club? Like in the same vehicle? No. And how long were you there at the club? Hours. Probably like 4 to 5 hours. Do you know what time you left? Not exactly, no. Not exact time, but do you have any idea when you left? Probably like 11, 10:30, 11. That's his answer. Okay, question. When? Space. Where had you parked the car? Towards the back of the parking lot. And can you describe the parking lot? There is, I'd say, roughly 8-9 rows of cars. There's a tree line surrounding it. With the exception of OBT, the club itself, We were parked. If you were looking at the club from OBT, all the way to the left-hand side along the trees. Okay, so the back of the parking lot. So they pulled in the parking lot and went all the way to the back. Okay, that's where they're saying they were parked along that fence. Okay, all the way. Oh, along the tree. So that's going to be the back corner of the parking lot. I need to redraw that too. Okay, is it a paved lot? No, ma'am. Dirt? Yes. Is it? And then the space. How many entrances and exits to the lot? One entrance, one exit. Question, same one? Answer, no different. Question, one entrance, then one exit. Answer, correct. Is there any security? Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Is there any security there on the lot? That's a question. Answer, no, not to speak of. Like, there's maybe one or two people by the entranceway to the club itself checking IDs, but that's about it. Question, none that patrol the parking lot? Answer, not that I'm aware of. Question, and were you driving? Yes. Did anything eventful occur when you got to the club prior to leaving the club? Anything unusual happen? No. How about when you left the club? Answer, what are you asking? Like, what happened when I left? Question, did something occur when you left the club? Answer, yes. Question, and what? What happened? While I was, while we were sitting in the car preparing to leave, I was approached. Question, who is in the car with you? Myself and Mr. Nevins. Now, you see the difference right there. Mr. Nevins just said that on their way to the car, they were approached by Marchello. Now, he is saying that they're already in the car preparing to leave, and that's when they're approached by Marchello. Okay. And you were driving? Yes. Was he next to you in the passenger seat? That's correct. Okay, what happened? There was a knock at the window. I had rolled down the window because of the tint on the glass. I was unable to see who was on the other side. Upon rolling down the window, I was asked by the gentleman there for a cigarette. I replied with, yes, but it's a Newport, if that's okay. He replied, yes. When I looked down to get the cigarette, I have felt something come up across my face, which it turns to be, in turn came out to be a GUN. Question, now, did you know the man that asked you for the cigarette? Answer, no. Had you ever seen him before? Answer, no. Question, when you said it was a GUN on your face, what, can you describe it? Answer, silver. It appeared to be like a revolver type of GUN. I'm not familiar with firearms at all whatsoever. I'd say about 5 inches in length, maybe 6. Question, did you actually feel it on your face? Answer, yes. It had touched like my nose. Question, what did it feel like? Answer, cold. Question, can you, other than cold, can you describe the material? Answer, metal. Did you believe it was a real firearm? Yes. And what made you believe that? It was cold, it was metal, it was to my face, and I had no reason to think otherwise. What happened then once the GUN was on your face? We were told to get into the back of the vehicle. Did you see the man with the GUN at this point? Yes. Could you describe him? A colored man with dreads. So now, number one, I still don't understand how they're describing him as dreads, because I told you his hair was braided back and down into cornrows. And he usually, I don't know exactly, but most times he would put his stocking cap on and then his little beanie hat. But either way it goes, his hair was braided down that night. It wasn't out into free-flowing dreads. Okay, answer. A colored man with dreads. Somewhat of a deep voice to a point. I'm not too sure about height or anything like that, because I was sitting in a vehicle and he was leaning down to the window. Question, old or young? Answer, young, my age. Question, did you see anyone else besides him? Answer, yes. There was one other gentleman with him that was over towards the front of our car to the left, that was just kind of hiding out there until the GUN was pulled and we were told to get back in the car. Does this make sense? I'm trying to picture this. Because now what he's saying, because the other guy described it as though they were both on either side and they were forced into the back. This guy is saying, yes, there was one other gentleman with him that was over towards the front of our car. So the front of your car is going to be here, and the left side. So that would be, if Marchello was in their window, the guy would be behind him towards the front of the car. So those are two different accounts. Was towards the front of our car, over to the left, that was just kind of hiding out there until the GUN was pulled. And we were told, hold on, my screen just cut off. And my hands are going to bed. And we were told to get back in the car, in the back of the car. And can you describe him? Not exactly, no. I just know it was another colored gentleman, a high yellow, almost white gentleman, but he calls him another colored guy. Okay, no, not exactly. I just know it was another colored gentleman. I'd say approximately 5'10" to 6 feet in height. And was he towards the front of your car to the passenger side? Answer, driver's side to the left. Question, driver's side. Okay, so he's sort of behind the man that had the GUN on your at this point, but it's supposed to say something else. On you at this point. Yeah, about 4 feet behind. So they're honing in that this is something different. So they're trying to make sure. I think she's trying to make him clear that up, but he's not. And okay, and what happened then? We were told to get in the back of the vehicle. I was not allowed out of the vehicle in order to get in the back. So I had to crawl between the driver and passenger seat to get in the back of the vehicle. Now, the other guy says they were forced into the back by Marchello and the cousin that got away. They were forced in the back. Now, he has this whole different story, is that he had to crawl between the driver and passenger sides to get in the back of the vehicle. Okay, the question, do you know how Mr. Nevins got in the back? Answer, I believe he got out of the car and then got in the back. And what happened then? The person who knocked on the window had gotten in the driver's seat. The other gentleman had then come around to the passenger side and got in the passenger seat. They attempted to drive away. The person who was in, and all of this would have been in the surveillance cameras of the club's parking lot, because they still are alleging they have not left that club yet. So why couldn't we get that club surveillance that could have shown and proved all of this? Why did they hide that? Because if in fact this happened, you would want to release that tape so that you can strengthen, and there would have been no shadow of a doubt that this happened in this parking lot. Okay, the other gentleman had then come around to the passenger side and got in the passenger seat. They attempted to drive away. The person who was in the driver's seat realized that it was a standard and he could not operate a standard vehicle. So they switched drivers, and then it's a space. Question, are you still in the parking space? Answer, we were still in the parking spot, correct. So surveillance should have showed all of this. It would have at least showed a car with little individuals running around it and stuff and changing sides. It would have showed that. Why couldn't we get that? Anybody around? No, ma'am. This is a lie too. It's a club night. The big dance is about to start. He's parked in the back. That means that it was already packed. If he's parked in the back, there's almost no more parking spots in this park. How? How is there no one else around? He's parked in the freaking darn back. It's packed. There's many people around. Many witnesses could have witnessed whether this took place in this parking lot or not. Anybody around? No, ma'am. Question, okay. Now, is it Mr. Nevin's car? Is it a 2-door or a 4-door? 2-door. What happened once the two men switched seats? We had left the club and took a right down Orange Blossom Trail. Now, that's as well different because Mr. Nevins, in his testimony, said that they came out the club and they crossed OBT and went down the street. Across from it is Livingston, but you can't go straight across it. Remember, I showed y'all this. So Nevins says that they come out the club, they veered over and went down this street. This guy is saying they came out the club and went right down OBT, which leads to none of these roads that are in the statements. So Nevins says they came out the club, went across, went down, and that's where they ran the stop sign. Now, Wintle is saying they came out the club, made a right down OBT, and now we're going to finish. But their stories aren't aligning. So evidently they don't know what street they were driving on in this made up story. But they should have gotten their story more together, aligned, before they went to testify under oath on a witness stand. Okay. So here it is. We almost done. My hand going to bed. I got to stretch my neck. My jaw is ugh. We took a right down Orange Blossom Trail. Question, where did you see the GUN again? You see how she cut that off? She was on her P's and Q's right there, because she like, hold on, he about to incriminate himself. Where? And then she pauses. Did you see the GUN again? See how she quickly gets it back from, okay, he's saying something different from what that man said. She quickly brings it back to that weapon. Come on back to the weapon. Back over here. Gotta talk about this weapon. And that's my Willie D impression. I love you, Willie D. Okay, did you see the GUN again? Answer, yeah. The person who had gotten into the passenger seat because he couldn't drive standard kept the GUN towards us the entire time. And was that the same man that had the GUN on you when he knocked on the window? That's correct. What did he say to you? Answer, taking us to some lake. Question, did he say what for? Answer, not specifically. Well, he said he had, oh, let me read this over. Not specifically. Well, he had said about illing us and telling the person in the driver's seat that we have to go to this lake quick. And the person in the driver's seat was like, okay, Take them there. Besides that, the only other remarks that I strongly remember was, I hate F words and going to the lake. How were you feeling at that time? Nervous? Did you think you were going to be ill? The thought had crossed my mind, but to say that it was definitely in my head or definitely not in my head, I couldn't say that. I'm not too terribly sure. Nothing like this ever occurred to me before. Where did you go once you left the club? Took a left or took a right? Oh, they back on that. So now, took a left or took a right? Down OBT and then took a left off of some road off of there. Girl, maybe he called himself. Because nothing else in this trial is saying anything happened on OBT. So now he's confusing everybody. Took a left or took a right down OBT and then took a left off of some road off of there. I don't know that area of town, so I really can't explain it. I don't know that we were just going down, kept turning down different roads and everything. And then what happened? I guess we had passed a police officer at some point in time, and then they turned around and pursued the vehicle. Did they ever ask for your property, wallets, money? When did that happen? While we were in the car. And who said what to you? The person in the passenger seat with the GUN had asked if we had any money on us. We, Mr. Nevins and I, had both said at the time no. And they were like, come on, no money whatsoever. And we were like, no, you can have our wallets. And we gave them our wallets. How did that other guy get his wallet back though? Did they give it? His cousin must have gave him his wallet back and then jumped out and ran. That's how it had to happen. Because I don't understand how this man got his wallet back. Okay. No money whatsoever. And we were like, no, you can have our wallets. And we gave them our wallets. Question. Did you want to give them your wallets? I mean, is that something you planned on doing when they got in the car? Was to give your wallets? Answer. If it's going to save my life, why not? Was I planning on it? No. I don't plan on giving anyone my wallet at any time. Question. So this was also things said in the car about asking for your wallet. And then it's a space. Answer, yeah. Then it's a space. Discussion about money. What happened then? Answer. After the police had started giving chase to the vehicle, the driver of Mr. Nevin's vehicle started going through different backyards. It was like going in the driveway of one house, going through their backyard and out someone else's driveway. Question, were the police behind you still? Answer, yes, I believe so, yes. Question, how far? How much time had passed from the time you left the club to the time the police were behind you trying to stop the car? Do you know? I would estimate between 3 and 5 minutes. And do you have any idea how far away you were from the club? Not at all. So what happened then as and then it's a space. The police are behind you. Is it? And then there's a space. Are you all? And then it's a space. How fast was the car going at the time? Answer, I'm not sure. I could estimate it like maybe 15, 20 miles an hour. You can't go too fast in someone's backyard. So how the police didn't catch him then? So it's not a big chase, big full speed pursuit. No. What happened then? We came across a dead end. And then what happened? The two people in the front of the car jumped out of the car and started running. That's a lie again. It was proven Marchello did not run. Why are they studies saying that Marchello ran? Why do they want him to run so bad? In all the stories, why is it that Marchello runs? The cousin and Marchello runs. Cousin gets away. Marchello runs but gets caught. Why do they need Marchello to run so bad? Because all of them are alleging that Marchello ran. But in their own alleging of him running, by saying where he was arrested, and it's going to come out later, I believe it's in the closing argument, that it's going to be proved that Marchello couldn't have run. So why do they want him to run so bad? What is the purpose of him running? Now, for me, I believe the purpose in making Marchello run is explaining away that weapon. What the hell happened to that weapon? That's why, because if we be truthful and say that Marchello didn't run, then the question arises, so then you have the weapon. Where's the weapon? Present this weapon to us. Where's the testing of this weapon? Whose fingerprints turned out on this weapon? It's too many questions that we can't answer because we need to protect this driver and these two. So it's better to delete the weapon. So the only way to omit this weapon is to make it that Marchello ran and he discarded the weapon. And we found Marchello, but we never recovered the weapon. Okay. So it's not a big chase, big full speed pursuit. No. What happens then? We came across a dead end. And then what happened? The two people in the front of the car jumped out of the car and started running. And what did you do? Mr. Nevins and I got out of the car after they had gotten out and started running. Question, what happened then? Answer, the officers had their GUNs on us. And then we had explained that we were victims and what had just happened. The officers proceeded to go after them. And from there, the reports and everything. Question, did you make a written statement that night? Answer, yes, ma'am. Question, did you put every single detail of what occurred in that statement? Answer, as best as I could at that very point, yes. I was slightly nervous, so omitting something might have happened subconsciously. I do believe I put in everything. Question, how did you feel after this happened? Very sick, nauseous. When? When were you sick and nauseous? After I was out of the vehicle and I had, and then it stops. It sunk in as to what just happened. Question, and did you get sick? Answer, yes, ma'am. Where? At the side of the road. Did you identify anybody that evening? Yes, ma'am. And who was the person that you identified? The gentleman who had knocked on the window with the firearm. Question, and where was, pause, where did he end up in the car, that gentleman? Answer, after he had eventually ended up in the passenger seat where he was for the ride. Question, did you see the other man with a GUN at any time? I don't believe so, no. See, they're protecting that driver. They gotta protect the driver. You just all, okay, pause. The one man with the GUN. Answer, that's correct. Question, when you made your identification of the man that had that GUN on you, how long had been from the time the car stopped and the man jumped out to the time you made your identification? Do you have any idea? maybe 15, 20 minutes. I'm sorry. It was probably a little bit longer than that. About half hour. Question, and did you make a positive identification then? Yes, ma'am. I mean, there's no other identification. Marchello is sitting across the street on the ground with the officer that had him sit down. So why are they saying that they gathered somebody and brought him to make an identification? There's no other identification you could have made because there was no other guy sitting on that ground with Marchello. It was just Marchello on that ground. And did you make a positive identification then? Yes, ma'am. Were you 100% sure? Yes, ma'am. Do you see that person here today? Yes, ma'am. Would you point him out and describe what he's wearing? For the record, please. Sitting right there, white shirt with dark colored vest, like brown, gray. Ms. Brennan, Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant. No objections, says Mr. Sims, that's Marchello's lawyer. The court, the record would so reflect by Ms. Brennan. Did you get your wallets back? This is Ms. Brennan. Wait, who was questioning there? Oh, she's talking again, so she's still talking. Did you get your wallet back? Yes, ma'am. When? Shortly after, then it's a pause. Before the identification, even before filling out the reports for the officer, but after the vehicle was stopped. The wallets were on the ground, on the passenger side of the vehicle. Now you see how they move the wallets now on the passenger side to tie them to Marchello. Where did the other guy say the wallets were? And where does the police say the wallets were ultimately? Okay, the wallets were on the ground on the passenger side of the vehicle. Where the hell are the crime scene pictures? Aren't they supposed to take pictures of that stuff? And where they find these wallets? Where's all of that? It's like a lot of missing stuff in Marchello's case. Because this is a crime scene. Why is anybody touching those wallets at that point? Why is anybody handling that stuff? Where's those pictures? Where's those crime scene pictures? They could have ain't they supposed to marker off and put that little cone there? Exhibit this wallet, exhibit that. All of that could have been completely proven. Where is that? Because they got too many different back and forth stories about these wallets. Okay, the wallets were on the ground on the passenger side of the vehicle. Now the police statement is going to say something else. And did you just go pick it up, put it back in your pocket? Answer, yes, ma'am. Question, I want to show you this previous marked State Exhibit A for identification, which has previously been shown to defense. If you could take a look at those, and then it's a pause. Those photographs, and tell me if you recognize them. Answer, this is the vehicle? Question, take a look at all of them and just tell me if you recognize them. Answer, yes. And how do you recognize them? The vehicle we were driving that evening. Question, Nevin's vehicle? Answer, yes, ma'am. Question, is it fair and accurate depiction of what it looked like that night? Answer, yes, ma'am. Miss Brennan, Your Honor, at this time, I'd move into evidence State's Exhibit A for identification. The court, any objection? Mr. Sims, no, sir. Court, it'll come in. The clerk, State's Exhibit A would come in as State's Exhibit number 2, a composite of 4 photos, whereupon State's Exhibit number 2 was marked and received into evidence. Ms. Brennan, I don't have any further questions at this time. The court. Mr. Sims, cross-examination. Mr. Sims, thank you, Your Honor. This is Mr. Sims' cross-examination of him by Mr. Sims. Good morning, Mr. Wintle. Good morning. How are you doing? Had better days. I know what you mean. Now, you had not been in Orlando very long when this event occurred. Am I right? That's correct. You weren't at all familiar with that area of town on the other side of South Orange Blossom Trail near the club. All those little neighborhoods and whatnot, were you? No. So you're not familiar with those streets and what goes on down there or anything like that? Answer, that's correct. Question, you were a little bit familiar with the club, however, is that correct? That's correct. And that was and that was through the help of your friend, Mr. Nevins, who introduced you to that. That's correct. And you'd come down from Vermont, you'd met Mr. Nevins, and he had taken you there. Would you say 4 times? Oh, at least, yes. Question, and maybe as many as 8? Answer, that's correct. And generally, was it on Sunday? Yes. And on this Sunday, you think it could have been anywhere from as early as 5 o'clock in the evening that you got there. That's correct. And you all stayed a while, and you both drank, but not to excess, right? That's correct. And actually, interestingly enough, you ended up back at that club after all this happened, didn't you? Yes, sir. And you were, pause, while you were there at the club after all this happened, the police kept coming up and wanting you to identify other people, right? Now that is wrong. What? Oh, trying to get the other driver, they claim. They were trying to have him ID the driver. They explaining away that driver. That's correct. They came twice. Twice? I believe twice. Okay, then they bring the people to the club, or did they bring you where the people were? They brought us to where the people were. So now they brought them 2 times to the people. And on those 2 other occasions, you identified no one, right? Explaining away this driver. That's correct. The only one you identified that night was Marchello Jackson. That's correct. And Marchello Jackson had, space, well, let me talk to you about where the car stopped. It has stopped, Mr. Nevin's car has stopped in the circle that was kind of a dead end, correct? Okay, hold on. Now, let's keep their story in mind. This just hit me. So, Marcello's the mastermind. Marchello walks up the two guys who were sitting in the parking lot about to leave this club for the night. They had been there all day from like 5 o'clock. He's about to leave, and they get carjacked upon leaving. Marchello makes them get in the back seat. Marchello jumps in the driver's seat. His cousin jumps in the passenger seat. Marchello realized, hey man, this is stick shift. I don't even know how to drive a stick shift. So Marcello's like, man, you got to drive. So they switch sides. So now Marchello is the passenger and his cousin's the driver. The cousin that has nothing to do with none of this, just the innocent driver, the cousin. Okay. So, you are made to get in the back of your car. You took 2 different streets, but anyway, you end up down the street in this dead-end cul-de-sac on Beach Street. The police come and ask you what happened. They pulled their weapons out on you, thinking you had something to do with this, but you're like, no, we've been robbed, officer. You got to help us go catch them. They're the ones, they tried to rob us. So the officers go and try to catch the 2. They only retrieve Marchello, who didn't run, but they say ran. They only found him. They never found the other driver. So you just was told you was going to be taken to a lake and drowned, because you added that later. If you know one driver is not caught, one of the suspects not caught, in your case, one got caught, do you feel safe enough to take your ass back to that club? And we know that we did not catch that second person. Does that make any sense? Anybody that just was taken from their destination, who the hell going back there, especially knowing that both of them weren't caught? It makes no logical sense. The only one you identified that night was Marchello Jackson. That's correct. And Marchello Jackson had, well, let me talk to you about where the car stopped. It had stopped. Mr. Nevin's car had stopped in a circle that was kind of a dead end, correct? Correct. And these 2 fellows got out. And you and Mr. Nevins got out also after that, correct? Okay, after that, that was a question. And then his answer was correct. And these fellows went across, and then he pauses. There are some railroad tracks just the other side, stones. Do you remember that all? Answer, I remember the stones. I don't know about railroad tracks. Question, so there were some gravel stones, right? Answer, correct. And those folks went in that direction, correct? That direction, I'm sorry, I'm reading them together. The answer is correct. Question, at first the police had their GUNs drawn on you, correct? Why do I keep doing that? Pulled on you. And then his answer is correct. And you turned them around fairly quickly saying, no, go after them. We're the victims. That's correct. Question, and then they did do that, correct? Answer, yes, sir. Question, and while you were waiting there, there's sirens everywhere, I imagine, right? Pretty much, yes. That's when you see your wallets. Answer, we had noticed our wallets shortly after we had told the officer that we were the victims, like kind of going back towards the car. Question, yes, sir. Answer, and they were on the ground near the passenger door. Question, oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm messing up, y'all. Give me 1 second to fix this. The question is, yes, sir, which I don't understand how that's a question, but that's what it said. The answer is, and they were on the ground near the passenger's door. That's what he's saying. And now the question is, so you went and got them, right? Answer, correct. Question, and you told the officers that you had the wallets that, and then space. It was Mr. Jackson that took them, right? Answer, correct. Question, not the other fellow. Mr. Jackson by himself took the wallets. Answer, we had, and then it's a space. We had given those to Mr. Jackson, yes. Question, and the officer said, well, good. And the answer is pretty much. And then the question was, you put them back in your pockets, and that was that. Okay, answer is yes, sir. Question, you weren't looking for any money because you didn't have any money in your wallet, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and the prosecutor said you about trying, hold on. And the prosecutor asked you about trying to be thorough in your report. You tried to be thorough, right? Answer, yes, sir. But you were a little upset by the whole ordeal. Am I right? Answer, that's correct. Question, but you were trying to put in everything you could because the officers asked you to do that, while you and Mr. Nevins were writing on top of the officer's car these reports, right? Answer, correct. And in that report, you don't mention that these fellows said they were going to take you to the lake, do you? Answer, I'd be surprised if I didn't, because that was something that really stuck out in my head. Question, okay, and it's a space. Then it's another space after the answer. But if I didn't, then no. Question, well, we're going to look at that. But I couldn't quite hear. Did you say they said they were going to ill you? Answer, yes, sir. Question, okay. They said that to you. That's something that certainly stuck out. Answer, yes, sir. Question, and that you wanted the police to know and this jury to know, right? Answer, correct. Question, so you wrote that in? Answer, I believe so, yes. Question, okay. And that was within 22 minutes or so of all these events going on. Am I right? Answer, mm-hmm. Question, that's a yes. I'm sorry. Answer, yes. Yes, sir. Mr. Sims, let me, if I may, Your Honor, approach the court. Yes, sir. By Mr. Sims. And I'm going to show him a statement made on May 13, 2001. Do you recognize what's marked? Space. What is identified as Orlando Police Department's statement? Answer, yes. Question, is that the statement you filled out that night? Yes, sir. The one and only correct? Answer, yes, sir. Would you like to review it here for a second? Read what you wrote. It's about a paragraph, right? That's correct. The court. Go ahead, Mr. Sims. Mr. Sims. Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Have you had a good chance to review that? Answer, yes, sir. You don't mention anything about them saying they're going to take you to a lake, do you? Answer, no, sir, I don't. And you don't mention anything about them saying I'm going to ill you, do you? Answer, no, sir, I didn't. Mr. Sims, okay, thank you. I have nothing further. Redirection by Ms. Brennan. Are you nervous here today, Mr. Wintle? Extremely. Your statement that was just shown to you, 13 lines long, did you put every single thing in it? Apparently not. Did you give a verbal statement also to the police? Or did he say, write down everything on the paper? And no need to tell us anything else because you'll write it all down, I'm sure. They had questioned us, and I had answered the questions and spoke with them while there, and also the written statement. So you were questioned by them, gave them a statement, and then wrote the 13 lines here. That's correct. I'm going to show you that's now marked State Exhibit D for identification and ask if you recognize that statement. Answer, yes. And how do you recognize it? Question, I wrote it. And is that statement you wrote that night? Yes. Okay, the one that you've been cross-examined on. Answer, that's correct. Has it changed in any way? No, ma'am. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move into evidence, State's Exhibit D for identification. The court. Any objection, Mr. Sims? Mr. Sims, no, sir. Thank you. It'll be admitted, the court. The clerk. State's identification D will come in as State's number 3, whereupon State's Exhibit number 3 was marked and received into evidence. By Ms. Brennan, do you normally write like this? No, ma'am. What's different about your handwriting there? It's chicken scratch. It's usually not that messy. No, I don't write that messy at all. Question, why did you write so messy that night? Answer, nervous. Question, did you throw up before you wrote the statement or after you wrote the statement? Answer, before. Question, and why did you go back to the club later that night? Answer, to drink. Question, why? Answer, because of what just happened. Ms. Brennan, I don't have anything else. Mr. Sims, nothing, Your Honor. Thank you. The court, you can step down. Witness excused. The court, let's go ahead and take a 15-minute recess at this point. Court deputy, members of the jury follow me, whereupon at 11:11, ain't that funny? 11:11, Jordan the Chosen One always says that is the new beginnings, 11:11. Whereupon at 11:11 a.m., court was in brief recess. Okay. Everyone please rise. Court will, at 11:30 a.m. Everyone please rise. Court will come to order. The court, please bring in the jury. Court deputy, everyone please rise. The jury is entering. The court. All right, Ms. Brennan, call your next witness. And then this is where the state would like to call Officer Rivera. And I do have that in a whole nother video. So now we have gotten through just about most of the trial. So we've done in the earlier live today, we did the jury instructions. It was some of the jury picking or whatever. We did the opening statements. In this live, I just covered the 2 victims / witnesses who should have been suspects, but somehow they got off the suspect vest and put on a victim vest. We got their 2 conflicting testimonies. So now the only thing left, after this, it would be best to watch this one first and then go ahead and watch the police statements that I already have up there. And then after that, we have Marchello's statement, him being testified, which he was advised by his lawyer to lie. Marchello did lie under oath. Yes, he was advised to lie. It was about that stick shift situation, because everyone keeps saying that Marchello was the head of this crime, and he would have been the head of the crime, except for, he would have been the driver, except for Marchello didn't know how to drive a stick shift. So Marchello was told by his lawyer, it's going to be best if you say you can drive a stick shift. And Marchello went through a whole ordeal that night saying, why would he want me to lie? I don't know how to drive a stick shift. Marchello didn't even drive. I drove him everywhere. Marchello never had a driver's license, permit, or nothing. So he was saying it's best that Marchello says he was able to drive a stick shift, but he just chose not to. And I really think the jury seen straight through that. It didn't make sense. The questioning didn't make sense. But he was just saying what his lawyer told him to say. Because Marchello's a 20-year-old, 19-year-old going on 20-year-old man. He don't know a lot about this law, never been in trouble before. So he's completely putting his whole life and livelihood in the hands of this lawyer. And if the lawyer's telling me it's best to lie and say you know how to drive a stick, you gonna get up on that stand and say, baby, I know how to drive a stick, back a stick up, put the stick to the side and this and that. I know how to do everything about a stick. Even though it did not make sense, when you hear that question, it is not going to make sense. And I think it just made Marchello look dumb, basically. And I don't know, it also solidified that he had to be lying. And once a jury sees that you're lying about something, but I don't understand, because it was clear that these two guys were lying, but they still believed them. So I don't know. But okay, guys, my head hurt. This hand gone to bed. So we almost through this transcript. If you've been riding with your girl, I thank you, because I know it ain't going to be nothing but the real, because ain't nobody going to watch this. And if nobody do watch it, it's fine. It at least is a record for me to be able to listen back to the transcript rather than me to keep having to come here. I am legally blind, and it's very hard reading this. Me to keep having to come back and reread it and reread it and reread it. Well, now I can just listen to it, and listening can get way down deep in you more than just reading. So we're gonna stop there. Girl, it's probably real late. 5:20. Oh, girl. All right, guys. Thank you for riding with your girl. It's your girl Cadillac.